Hello, Dawn.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm all right. Sorry, we just had a little bit of a crisis here, which is all resolved now. And just putting my headphones on. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, hot. Very hot.
That makes a change.
Yeah, very hot. Very hot.
Okay. Yeah, we sort of in the low 30s, I think, at the moment. So,
Oh, okay.
what are you?
High 30s, like 36, but it's really, really humid. So it's sort of
That's horrible.
last night I think it only got down to like 28 degrees or something. So yeah.
Oh, that's horrible at night time. My goodness, I can't. So do you sleep with the air conditioner on?
No, I just have the fan on. Yeah, I
Doesn't,
don't like air conditioning. Yeah.
yeah, but I suppose if you've got the fan not blowing on you, it sort of blows sideways. Not so bad. But, I had the window open last night, and there was the equivalent of a fan blowing in the window because we had strong winds. We still got strong winds, and it was blowing onto my face. Yeah.
Oh, right.
So I couldn't get a cool air, which it was cooler outside than it was inside. Anyway,
Yeah.
one of those things.
Yeah. So what you been up to? Anything exciting?
No,
No excitement.
No excitement. Just get set up.
Really, they're still playing up, are they?
They find other reasons to play up, and I don't know. There just seems to be chaos. They dramatically underpaid Sue yesterday, and she was ready to give up and all the rest of it, and complained bitterly. And then they came back and said, "Oops, sorry, we made a mistake. We'll rectify it today." Okay, and yeah. We'll see how it goes. And then they came back to me and they said my pay claim was inaccurate. Showed the reasons that they thought it was inaccurate. So I had to resubmit my claim and make it very plain and clear, and which I then did. I haven't heard back from them. And that was, when was that? It was yesterday sometime. So, yeah. We've just got to keep focused, on
that's
the
true.
bigger picture.
You said once before about just sort of going with the flow a bit too. So
yeah.
As frustrating as it can get.
Yeah, I agree. You louder than usual. I'm just going to.
Am I?
Yeah, I'm a lot louder. I don't know, I can turn down. I think it might be me. Maybe I've got my. I might have turned it up in the last class or something.
Okay.
Because I have some people that are very soft. So yeah, that's better now. Okay. Yeah.
So tell me, with this 9-year cycle stuff.
Yeah.
As you are entering into the start of a new 9-year cycle, what do you do? Do you do anything? Do you plan? Do you create a vision, or do you just enter into the next cycle?
Yeah, what you do is it like an overlap. Okay, it isn't like it starts on your birthday and all of a sudden it's changed. It's like, and you could be led into something new or an idea maybe in your 8th year. Okay, you might be looking at something, and so you're working through with it, and then the 9th year, brings keeping an overlap, because the overlap could go into the first of the next cycle as well. But generally, it's a time for bringing it to end, and for you, the action you take is to contemplate and think about it. Okay, maybe with a pen and paper, and think about what happens in the last 9-year cycle? Okay, look at the last 9-year cycle. And when did it actually start? And what was the sort of the key points of the last 9 years? Did somebody die? Was there some dramatic events? Was there career changes? Was there illness? Was there change of jobs? Anything like that. Sort of you jot down those things and sort of get a sort of view of that 9-year cycle. So that's what you do in your 9th year, is you look back and try and identify those particular points. And they always flow in some sort of rhythm, in the sense they might not be exactly according to year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but what happens in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to happen and does happen. So you write it down and look at it. Okay, that brings you to the point of the 9th year. You say, okay, clearly this is something new that's coming up here, whatever it is. Okay, and how do I feel about it? Okay, big thing, feel about it. I'm feeling quite excited about it. Okay, right. Okay, so now let's have a look at the way forward. Like anything you do in business, maybe you're going to now sort of have an overall purpose that encompasses this new job or new studying or whatever it is. Okay, and you think, okay, this is really, I enjoy this. Let's say it's your studying, for example, okay, of crypto, and you think, okay, so what would be my next logical step? Okay, so, because now perhaps crypto is going to be like your overall purpose for the next 9 years. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's only 3 years. It could be leading into something that's part and parcel of that in 3 years' time. But that doesn't matter. You don't know that. So you only deal with what you know. And so, yes, you write down that and look at the purpose and you think of the next step. And along the way, as you're writing it down, you've got to be feeling good. That's the key, the marker, so that you don't get lost in logic or something that looks like a lot of money or something like that. Okay, it must be a feeling, and that, so that's what you do. And then year 1 comes, and you've now written these things down. Now you can let them unfold. I mean, there's a certain amount of action that you would take just because you set a goal. Okay, if it means you've got to study something else, let's say that's part of your, then you go and study that, and so you encourage. So the knowledge of the 9-year cycle just helps you put an end to the previous cycle.
So there's a real period of reflection then.
Yeah.
And looking at what's next.
Yeah. And if nothing has cropped up, then it will. Okay. So
check to see if you've got a pulse.
Yeah. But also look back the last sort of year and say, have you missed something? Okay. There was something presented that you just turned off or didn't acknowledge or something. As I say, it could be something like a change of where you live, for example. It doesn't have to be career or otherwise. Okay. I mean, your mother going into the home, and that's a major event in your life cycle, past life cycle. Okay. So you date that in your, and similar things that might have happened. Okay, but not necessarily things that happen to other people, that like your brothers or children or something. Okay, it's what affected you. I mean, your mother going to affected you immensely. Okay, so that was a big thing. Yeah, did that answer your question?
It does. It does. Yeah. No, very useful. Thank you. Yeah. Very useful.
Yeah, I spent the other evening going through. I've pulled them all out. I started before our last conversation, but I never got to read a lot of them. But I pulled out a lot of things, all the way even to, I had a good friend in South Africa called Kevin Rowe, and he is a psychiatrist. And I remember going through a really depressed state in a time in South Africa. And he made me fill out these forms. They tick the boxes. This is now science, okay? And tick the boxes, tick the boxes, tick the boxes, and then he goes and analyzes it all, and he comes out with a reading, and so I looked at that, and then I looked at something that it's called a karmic life path, okay, and I'm karmic life path number 27. So now that's fitting in with numerology, okay, and so I was looking at and the karmic life path. They're lessons that you've got to learn in this lifetime, and they tend to, or the path generally gets sort of early life, midlife, and later life, but otherwise it's not really in sections. There are soul lessons, and there are then other lessons that you need to learn, and then also, finding out really what is the main lesson, the main purpose, if you like, of things that you should be doing or should have been doing, and to get through to where you are now. So I read this. It's quite a comprehensive document. It's anybody is on karmic life path 27, but obviously for me it was very personal, and so it was a very interesting read, because then I was comparing it to the karmic numbers, that like the birth numbers and the path numbers and so on, and looking at my weaks and my strengths, and comparing it to the Kevin Rowe's, the psychologist, analysis, because he gave me a very comprehensive analysis as well, and sort of putting it all together. And then I did a lot of things in my life where I got people to analyze, whatever it was. It was me, that has been my life, as always getting, if there's something that somebody can analyze something about me, then I want to know it. I want to get to it because I want to learn from it. I can see that is one of the things I was meant to do in this life, okay? It was, get to know more about myself. And so putting it all together and looking back over 72 years, it's like humorous, okay? Because you can sort of see, that aspect and that aspect and that aspect, and sort of how I had to handle it as, I mean, we would sit here all day if I told you, not that I could even remember without getting the papers in front of me again, but, just how interesting that I followed the path. And then at times I sort of went off for a period of time, a number of years, where, I wasn't really following my soul goals, if you like, that the karmic path gives you. And so, yes, it was very, very heartwarming to go that route. Now I thought to myself, how much are you interested in knowing? Because a lot of those things are just, you can go and, let's say, answer the questions online, but some of the things I can work out for you. Okay, so like your karmic number, and then you go online and you can get the full sort of PDF about that karmic.
Well, you already did that though, didn't you? That thing that you sent through to me, I think, had the karmic life number in it, I think.
I don't think I've done a karmic life number, or did I? Was there something that's written? I know I've done your life number.
Oh,
not the
okay.
same
So
thing.
different.
Oh yes, no, that the light number is a single number. Okay, the
Yeah.
karmic number. I haven't. I don't think I did it for you. Okay,
Okay.
and let me just write it down. Would you like me to have a look at it?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay. Let me just write. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. I will do that. I will do that for sure. So if you just look, perhaps, and if I had to say to you, you know, now you look back on your, what are you now, 60?
63 this year.
63, yeah. So if you look back on the 63 years, and what would you say your overall purpose was? You can put it into one word, or you can just describe a scenario that you think it is.
Probably to be of service, I think.
Okay, can you not be more specific within which service or?
I'm more specific than that. Oh, okay.
Because service can be anything. I mean, you can make something and it's a service. You can be teaching somebody, it can be a service. You know, you can be a doctor and a service. You can be a farmer and it's a service. So anything sort of that.
Well, when I was younger, I'd probably say it would have been to be somewhat visionary, I think.
Okay.
But as I've got older, it's more wise.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'm just a husk of a man, Michael.
You say that. I've just right before this, I was busy putting together a class called the Cleverest People on current people, cleverest current people on earth, not necessarily historical, although the one I was working is now historical because he's died. And that was Hawkins. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. And interesting because now you know exactly who he is, and he had his neuron disease, and he was confined to a wheelchair and couldn't even get help for speech. And he was this, he published books and things on black holes and stuff like that. And he, just in context to what you were saying a moment ago, is he was an atheist. Okay, he says there's no God. He says you're a computer. He says, okay. He said when the computer broken, okay. In other words, when you die, okay, you throw it on the heap. There's nothing you can do. And he's now died. Okay, and so I didn't know there were still sort of those sort of atheists around, especially people that were, physicists, and I mean, he was just too highly qualified, in all sorts of things.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because they often, my sense has been that, scientists, they probably often get to a point with their research and so on where they just can't explain it. But they know that it wasn't just something that happened by accident. So. But sounds like he was in denial about it.
He was, absolutely. There was only him and what he did, and that was it. There was absolutely nothing outside of the universe that he knew. Yeah.
They're an interesting group of people who, you know, are like a world leader in something, whether it be science or something else. Because they literally are out there by themselves, aren't they? You know,
Yeah,
in that sense, you know.
totally.
So like that Buddhist monk recently passed away as well, that Thich Tran Han. He was like 95 years of age or whatever, and prolific publisher and teacher and all of those sorts of things. But one which, you know, in his lifetime, you know, had a global impact.
Okay.
And I don't know how you define, you know, a smart person as such, but I suppose you could also argue that Hitler had a global impact as well, but, you know, for a different reason. Yeah.
No, I haven't really got a definition for my class. I'm sort of just using my intuition, because the first one on my list is a youngster who had a difficult upbringing, but he joined the US. He went to varsity and got a simple degree, and then he joined the forces, and he went and fought in Iraq and other places, and he won awards and medals, shall I say, and then he came away after having a dramatic experience where two of his friends died slowly in front of him in Iraq, and he didn't have the knowledge to do anything for them, okay, except some basic first aid, but it couldn't keep them alive until, you know, some help arrived. And so he decided, I'm going to go become a surgeon. And so when he went back from there, he became a surgeon. That led to further degrees that he was studying. And then the next minute, he was approached by NASA, and out of 18,000 applicants, he's been chosen to go to the moon, okay, basically, okay. Yeah, married, couple of kids, and so on IT, or not IT, IQ, you know, is very high, and probably the ideal person as a representative from mankind, to go to Mars, okay, and which he might land up doing. And so yeah, so that I felt was you know, a part of my clever definition, if you like, okay, and it's got a story. Hawkins, just because his profound exploration or investigation into the universe at such a level, and he came, you know, he introduced a theory which nobody believed in, and then eventually they did believe in him many years later while he was still alive, okay, and so, you know, he clearly was just from that aspect, I sort of feel he was very clever, okay. And then got to know a little bit in the research about his background and so on. You know, I didn't know that he was part and parcel of it, like a pop icon as well, okay. He was in a number of films and wrote a number of books, and he quite happy to make fun of himself, okay. And so yeah, and now after this class, I've got no idea who the third one is going to be. Probably would be three. I'd probably fit three into a class. Who is in your mind is the cleverest man currently on earth? Cleverest. I think we're talking brain. We're not talking about spirituality, okay? I know.
Well, I mean, I don't know if he is a person or not. That's the only thing. But that the inventor of the blockchain technology, he would have to be incredibly incredibly clever.
I agree. But is there enough knowledge about him?
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. I mean, no one knows who he was or where he is, or whether it's a he or a she, or whether it's a group of people, or but there is a name. But yeah.
And have you tried to Google the name?
Yeah, I mean, he published a white paper actually, or a book. So I think I actually might have even downloaded it. Let me have a quick look here. So yeah, there was a book published called Blockchain Basics plus NFTs for Beginners.
You write that down. And have you looked at it?
I've got the book. I haven't read it yet.
Okay.
And the author, or the author assigned to, is Nakamoto Satoshi.
Okay.
So Nakamoto Satoshy. So he's the one that's credited with
starting it.
The creation of it, I guess. So
what was the title? Blockchain?
Blockchain Basics plus NFTs for Beginners.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
The interesting thing about it, though, is that I would say that a big chunk of the world population probably wouldn't recognise, even if he is a person, recognise the technology to the extent at this stage. So it's probably still like early adopter phase, even though there's billions and billions and billions of dollars in there, and it's a high priority agenda for just about every government in the world, and it's the first true innovation into the world's financial systems since probably the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
But it's definitely one that I would.
You would. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's
for a whole range of reasons too. A lot more than just innovation in the financial system, but just trying to build a distributive technology that's not owned by anyone apart from humanity, that is transparent, and able to be a global foundation for a whole range of innovations from it. So. So that would be the one that would sort of come to mind in terms of a contemporary, I guess. And the contemporary in the sense that, well, a little bit like, the person you were just talking about, in the sense that their research, was for enhancing humanity's understanding. It wasn't done for a corporation or a government or anything like that. So,
right.
In that sense, there would be a lot of similarities, I would think, in terms of the underlying principles associated with it.
Yeah.
And certainly not for personal gain.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think so too. That's great. I'm going to just ask a favor of you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just experiencing some tummy cramps, so can you just give me a few minutes?
Yeah, sure.
And can you do something until I get back?
Yeah, no problem at all. No problem at all.
Okay,
All
thanks.
good.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for your indulgence.
All right.
There we are. Had some new things for lunch, so I think something doesn't agree with me.
Oh, okay.
I've got a very sensitive. It's my target area in my body. You know, if anything's going to happen, it's always to do with my stomach. Okay.
Probably most of us, I would think. Yeah, to one degree or another. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. What were we saying? Okay. We're talking about blockchain, yeah.
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 Why does the universe exist?
Why does it exist? Why does it need a reason?
Bam! No, just came out of nowhere.
It's a good question, though. One that deserves to be considered.
Yeah.
It's a it's a fascinating perspective, because I think probably in all ages, but certainly in the age in which we're living, there are so many distractions from what really is. You know, there's you know, so-called news organizations which are spreading all sorts of misinformation. There's people who are very absorbed in topics which really have very little to do with their life.
Yeah.
You know, there's systems that are taken for granted. You know, like, I suppose I sort of say that in the sense that when I first looked at crypto, for example, you know, I had a whole bunch of assumptions that, you know, that I thought this was going to be about. And so when I started to research it, my initial approach no doubt was looking for evidence to back those assumptions,
Yeah.
rather than just seeing, what
Yeah.
the heck was going on.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So the first point of that was sort of saying, well, actually, I don't know. So let's find out. Which is a completely different approach than saying, oh, this is a crock or it's a scam or whatever, and I'm just going to go in there and try and prove it.
It's you make a really important point, because we have, each of us have our own belief systems and our own, and so based on history of our own personal history, and so we act on those belief systems. Okay. And I've got an example of, I think it was today or yesterday when I did a class. I did my first class. You remember I told you I was going to replace the class on spirituality. Okay.
Yeah.
And I did that first class today. Anyway, I had somebody in the class, and who said to me, this stuff, this inner stuff and other attracting stuff, and you attract stuff and you repel stuff. She said, that's all nonsense, man. Says to me to the whole class. Okay. And I said, it's just, I like science. I like prove to me that there is something. Okay. And so she had a belief. She she firmly believes that that's who she is, and that's what she wants, and that's right for everybody, perhaps. Although she didn't say that. And so belief systems, block our mind from being open. Like you were saying with the cryptocurrency, you had thoughts about, or the blockchain, what it was going to be about. Okay, and we all do that. We all do that. Okay.
But and that's something that's been really important to me, as a way of looking at things, irrespective of whether it's on the basis of science or spirituality or anything. Is the first step is, what do I actually know about this? Not much at all, really. Okay, well, let's go and have a look.
Yeah.
And that's the approach forward. And the tragedy is, in one sense, is, like, without knowing the person, but to use that example that you just quoted, is, I like science because I like facts, and I like this and I like that. Well, how has science gone about explaining, why we are? How does it explain, why a blade of grass exists? And I mean, like, really explain it, or even just explaining, well, what's water? What is it?
Right.
And once again, I think it's lots of assumptions, lots of beliefs, rather than just sort of saying, look, I actually don't know, because we don't.
Yeah.
And that's got to be part of the dedication to truth, as a guiding principle, is that, well, what's the truth of the matter? Well, the truth of the matter is I actually don't know. I have a whole bunch of beliefs and assumptions and things like that, but do I really know? No, I don't. Okay, well, let's start from there then.
Yeah.
And I think if you go in there, and the words get mutilated and abused over time and that, but if you go in there sort of saying, okay, I want to seek to enhance my understanding from there, you will see all sorts of probably conflicting, reports and research and all sorts of stuff. And there will no doubt be parts of it which, there is agreement on, but there'll be lots of parts of it where there is no agreement on, you know. So
Mm.
the fundamental question then comes back to each one of us as individuals is, okay, well, how do I find out? How do I find out what the truth of whatever is?
Mm. Mm.
And that's a big question for everyone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you want to gloss over it and say, oh, well, you know, I read this somewhere, so this is what I believe. Well, does that get you any closer to the truth?
Yeah. Yeah.
Might do the opposite. You know? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess also a lot of people don't have inquiring minds. Okay. And they're quite happy, they're quite comfortable living within their belief system, okay? And they can justify it, like, you know, I don't have time for this, you know, this day.
When I was a wee lad, there was this, and he was an older sort of guy who had a television program. And I'm talking about the days of black and white TV and TV only being on for like, you know, 6 or 7 hours a day or whatever. And his name was Professor Julius Sumner Miller. So he was a physicist. And his favorite catchline was, "Why is it so?"
Okay.
And that sort of stuck with me all of my life. It's like, well, why is it so? So he must have been like an early forerunner to the Plumstead methodology.
Why is it so?
Which I thought was a fascinating approach, because there was no thesis that he was trying to prove or anything. It was just like, so why is it so? Why does, you know, like he used to do experiments, like he would, you know, get like a drum, you know, put some water in it and then put it on a flame, you know, then the water would boil, you know, and turn into steam, and then he'd put the cap on it, and the drum would just crush, you know, all down, you know. He says, now, why is that so? Why does that happen? Why does that happen? You know?
Right. Okay.
You know, there's no visible reason that that should happen. So why is that happening? And then he would talk about the science behind it. You know?
Right.
So, but I just loved his approach, because it was so engaging. It was like, why? Why did that happen? You know?
And demonstrative as well. It's good too.
Yeah, very much so. But it was just like a little 30-minute television program, and
black and white.
It's like, black and white TV, you know. And as you can imagine, it was just a little, quite a short man and balding, with, you know, hair like this out the back, and he always had his shirt sleeves rolled up, and you know, wore sort of like khaki clothes.
Oh, he didn't wear a white.
No, he didn't wear a white coat. And he had a big counter in front of him, and behind him there was a blackboard, and he used to write on this blackboard with chalk.
Okay.
And and that's that would be one of his favorite. Why is it so? And underline it.
Obviously, it was popular. You can still remember it.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing, isn't it? You know, all these years later.
Yeah. I can't even remember where I came across my first TV.
Well, television in Australia started, I think, on the year that I was born, so 1959. I think it started.
Okay. Yeah. No,
and I think there was like 3 television channels, I think.
Okay.
It used to start at like, you know, 3 o'clock in the afternoon and be finished by about, you know, 9 or 9:30 at night. So,
I can't remember.
And I think colour television came in probably the 1970s. probably. I think. Yeah, I think it would have been about the 1970s, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like really accentuated colours, so lots of bright greens and blues and purples and oranges.
I remember the test screen that used to come up on the TV. Yeah, yeah. Color test screen.
Yeah. It's changed a lot in a short time, although it seems a long time. It's only a short time, isn't it?
It has, hasn't it, Justin? Really, it's been an exciting period in the history of humanity, the period that we've lived in.
Well, it is, and that's the fascinating thing, because I think about my mother. Like, she was born in 1930.
Yeah.
And just what's changed over those 90 odd years.
Yeah.
So much, like
yeah.
Cars, air travel, just the technology that we just take for granted these days. She doesn't, but
yeah,
we do. There's so much change.
Yeah, the change now is exponential. I think our grandchildren, when they look back, when they're 60, they're going to go through even a more exciting period than we did.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to be a challenge for historians in some ways, isn't it? It's like keeping up with the change.
Yeah, but it's going to be a challenge for communities and individuals as well, I guess. The decisions that have to be made, like right now, the decisions that have to be made. Talking about decisions, let me just tell you what happened. My brother sent this to me this morning, information in South Africa. Okay. There was an individual who was fired from his job in South Africa, okay, because he refused to have the vaccinations. Okay, so he took the company to court. Okay, and it was immediately upslated to the high courts. Okay, in South Africa, and he lost the case. Okay, and the judge said, the High Court judges concluded that his rights were protected by the Constitution very clearly. It's a very good Constitution in South Africa, a very modern Constitution. But he said there's only one thing that overwrites the Constitution, and that's the people. So he lost it on that. So I just quite thought-provoking. Okay, I'm definitely going to got it down in my mind to see if I can pick up some more detailed information about it, or the actual judgment.
So when he says one thing that overrides it is the people, what did he actually mean by that?
Well, I want to read it myself. That's all that was said in the communication to me. Okay, and I would imagine that the will of the people, let's say in this case, a percentage of people have been vaccinated. They want vaccination for a reason, whatever their own reason is, and so the people
just on the weight of what's actually happened.
But so I guess that. But it also interesting that what could happen in the future if it's the will of the people, okay, that will then take away the individual's rights, as enshrined in the Constitution. It's something that I'd like to sort of delve into and just think about, because
it's a really good question, and a very deep question as well, because like it comes up in the crypto area all the time, in the sense that if something is truly decentralized, then no one has control over it. apart from the collective.
Okay. Yeah.
But as you say, the collective can still make decisions which are not perhaps in the best interest of the collective as well, i.e. making a short-term decision which has longer-term consequences. And governments do that all the time, I guess. But
sure.
But yeah, it's interesting to say, okay, well, what's the measure of that?
Mm, mm.
Just because the weight of numbers said this is the way it's going to be today.
Yeah.
And presumably, in the 1940s, over in Europe, there were a whole bunch of people in one country who sort of said, yeah, no, let's go and do this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's not a very good example. I don't know.
Well, you're thinking of Hitler motivating the masses, and so that overrides any individual.
And lots of the reasons that they were dealing with were probably quite legitimate, because there were a lot of economic reasons and
and the
national
masses,
security issues and all those sorts of issues that were put. It was just how they were implemented, wasn't it?
So, and he motivated them through let's get you jobs, okay, let's get you work.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see what you come up with on that.
I will. It will be interesting, I think, because it's a whole different perspective.
And that's one of the, as I said, like at the risk of harping on it, that's one of the big issues, like with the design of the blockchain, is like, how do you make it trustworthy? And the way the original design was to make it trustworthy is to take people out of the equation. So.
True. It's only people that trust. So you take trust out of the equation.
Well, I think that's probably a little overstatement. The fact of the matter is you make it trustworthy because it's transparent, and you can't rewrite history, and so some of those sorts of things. I think it's probably a more accurate description of it, rather than taking people out of it, because people are integral to its operation, clearly. So
I understand.
And maybe it might be a utopian view otherwise, but maybe the fact of the matter is, well, certainly in this dimension anyway, that there are always going to be people who are going to try and serve their own interests rather than the interests of the collective.
Always. Yeah. How's your studying going on the crypto since I last spoke to you?
Yeah, still plodding away on it. Yeah, there's a lot to learn.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, it's such a fast moving, like change happens like literally on a weekly basis. So what I've sort of been doing is I've been trying to systematically get my head around, or try and build an understanding of, how the different coins operate and why they were designed like they were designed. And I'm not talking about like the meme coins or anything like that, which they affectionately call the shit coins, which is a rather unflattering label. But like, what is it that these other coins are designed to do? And when you look at the architecture that goes behind some of it, they talk about, anti-inflationary coins. So one of the challenges with the normal currencies, like the fiat currencies and so on, is that because governments can just print as much money as they like, it introduces a lot of inflationary pressure, which we're sort of seeing now in terms of the US Federal Reserve saying that there's likely to be interest rate rises in March, and
Yeah.
In Australia, they're talking about interest rate rises. It's not if, it's a matter of when now, so, and all of the implications with, price increases and all of those sorts of issues that go with that.
All right.
Whereas the design of some of these coins and the ones that they sort of try and refer to as stable coins, which means they take a lot of the volatility out of it, is they have these sort of built-in cyclical processes where, when demand increases on a particular level of a coin, which produces like upward pressures on it, they flip it into like it's almost like a nuclear model where the energy around that coin flips into an opposing coin. And a lot of the energy which is in this first coin is they call it burn. So you burn that out of it. So you get this sort of wave sort of pattern in terms of how the coin operates, and hence the term stable. It can still value-wise project in an upward trajectory, but it takes a lot of these sort of like sharp sawtooth type patterns out of it.
Okay.
So they talk about how coins are minted and how they're mined, and there's also when they have a vesting process, they quite often they'll burn a lot of coins at the same time. So it's just trying to get used to the terminology and like now what, and just that question. So why would you do that? And the logic behind it is because they want to address this issue of inflation, which is rampant over time with fiat currencies. So it's one of the downsides with fiat currencies,
Right.
And inflation at its extreme, for some of the countries, their purchasing power with the money they take home from their job, can be substantially undermined, within like a month or 2 month or 6 month time frame.
Right.
Whereas if you deal with that as inflationary pressures, then your buying power, remains a lot more stable. So it takes a lot of that volatility out of the market, and things that which for a lot of us, would just sort of take for granted. Okay, well, how come the price of petrol is like $1.90 a litre this week? Oh, because that's just the way it is, Well, yeah, but why is it like that? Why can the price of that of petrol change on a daily basis? Because when I go and buy a loaf of bread, it doesn't change on a daily basis. Yes, it does change, but not on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I can buy a litre of milk, and it doesn't change on a daily basis. So what's going on there? And it sort of tries to have a currency which provides stability and within certain parameters a bit more certainty. And the objective of it is to provide the buying power in a stable way. So a lot of the fiat currencies, even worldwide, are sort of pegged to the US dollar, for example. But who's in control of what the US dollar value is? Or the US government, or the Federal Reserve, or Federal Treasury, or whoever. So it addresses that issue by saying, okay, well, no, the design of it has been done on a distributive basis, which basically means that no single person can be in control of it. And naturally, governments hate it. Absolutely hate it. Trying to outlaw it and regulate it and all sorts of things.
Yeah. Yes. I'm glad you're getting your head around it, because you lost me.
Oh, sorry.
And you haven't sent me any articles to read or anything either,
No, well, I will. I'll put my mind to that over the next couple of days, and I'll send you some stuff. So
promises.
No. I will.
When do you go back to work?
Next Tuesday.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So you got a week. Okay. Nearly. Mm.
Yeah, it's evaporating very fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you enjoyed your break to date?
Yeah, I have. I've been doing lots of projects around the house that I haven't had time or the motivation to do. So I'm really sort of getting into
Okay.
getting things off my list.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and just like big cleanups and decluttering and, you know, all of those sorts of things, which are things we often talk about. But unless you move from one side of the world to the other, then
Yeah. You don't
it's
get to do.
difficult. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's probably a good note to finish on, I
Yeah.
guess, is it?
Yes. Yes. Decluttering. Good note to finish.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Good
Okay.
chatting again. Good chatting again.
Talk to you
Yeah.
on the weekend.
Okay.
Okay
Thanks a
then.
lot. Cheers,
See
man.
you now. Bye.
Bye.